10 Things Netflix is Hiding About Pablo Escobar. The hit Netflix series Narcos covers the life and crimes of infamous Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar, but there are still many details left out of the story. Founded in 1997, Netflix has experienced both success and controversy. Similarly, Escobar was known for attracting fame and notoriety. When Narcos premiered in 2015, it created a buzz due to the explosive combination of Escobar's life and Netflix's creative possibilities. Although Netflix has been lauded for its meticulous research and the visionary direction of Brazilian filmmaker José Padilha, who added a vivid, dramatic flair to the story, politics is an arena in which perfection is impossible to attain. The smallest details can be twisted, and the devil often hides in the shadows. Despite their best efforts, the line between truth and fiction is blurred, and viewers must tread carefully when navigating this complex tale. In this video, we'll take a closer look at 10 things that Netflix is hiding about Pablo Escobar. From his lesser-known criminal activities to his personal life and relationships, we'll explore the untold aspects of the real-life figure that inspired one of the most popular crime dramas of all time. Number 10. The primary plan for Narcos. According to legend, Netflix had initially intended to produce a feature film about the notorious drug lord known as the King of Coke. However, as they delved deeper into the research, it became apparent that a single movie would not suffice. The filmmakers unearthed a wealth of information about Escobar's rise to power, including his early exploits with a man called Kochs and his shady past, which involved stealing gravestones. In addition, the personal accounts of DEA agents Steve Murphy and Javier Pena brought a new level of authenticity to the project, illuminating aspects of Escobar's life that had previously been unknown. Thus, the idea for Narcos was born. Bernardo Aparicio Garcia, a writer who experienced Pablo Escobar's reign in Colombia, praised Narcos for its authenticity in a Vox review. He applauded the show for accurately representing ethnic diversity and incorporating intricate details such as the miniature colonial village houses adorning the walls of Pablo's mother's home, which added depth and realism to the story. These details elevated Narcos from a mere historical retelling to a work of art that speaks to the human experience. Ninth on this list, Pablos Recordings. Narcos may have achieved such an incredible level of detail due in part to the vast collection of recordings kept by the infamous Pablo Escobar. This notorious drug lord believed in chronicling every moment of his life, even going so far as to capture videos of events in his luxurious haciendas as they unfolded. Thanks to these meticulous recordings, the show's creators were able to construct an astonishingly precise representation of the conversations, fashion, and everyday routines of Escobar and his inner circle. These recordings offer an unprecedented insight into the life of one of history's most infamous criminals and the individuals who orbited him. Through the lens of Narcos, audiences are given a glimpse into the intimate world of a powerful and dangerous man whose legacy continues to fascinate and captivate to this day. The portrayal of Escobar in the show often depicts him sitting around deep in thought as he contemplates his next move in his ongoing battles with the government. This brooding figure, lost in his own musings, is a stark contrast to the violent and ruthless criminal he truly was. Interestingly, it's evident that the Medellin cartel had a fascination with media, as demonstrated by the incorporation of Escobar's recording that display the lavish activities within his haciendas. Additionally, he was notorious for buying or kidnapping news reporters to ensure his stories were told. It's clear that if he were alive today, Escobar would have been a master of social media. Family Judgement for number 8. No compelling story is complete without a touch of controversy, and Narcos was no exception. Fans of the show might wonder how much of the story, particularly Escobar's interaction with his family, was accurate, and more importantly, how did the Escobars themselves feel about it? Well, Pablo's brother Roberto was less than thrilled with the show's portrayal of his family. If you're one of the many viewers who noticed Roberto's conspicuous absence, you're not alone. As it turns out, Roberto Escobar wasn't just Pablo's brother, he was also the cartel's accountant until his arrest following Pablo's death. Despite Roberto's criticism, Narcos remains a gripping tale of power, corruption, and the cost of pursuing the American dream. In fact, Roberto Escobar, the infamous drug lord's brother and former accountant of the Medellin cartel, was downright furious with the show's portrayal of his family. He demanded a staggering $1 billion in compensation for using their image without consent. consent, a move that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. To add fuel to the fire, the first season showed an accountant named Blackbeard being arrested and snitching on the cartel to officials. This was a clear deviation from reality and only added to Roberto's frustration. He even offered to review the accuracy of the second season before its release, but it's unclear if he had any success. It's not just Roberto who's unhappy with the show either. Other family members have also contested the portrayal of Pablo, especially during the Palace of Justice siege and his death. It's clear that the show's creators took some creative liberties with the real-life story of Pablo Escobar, but to what extent remains a topic of heated debate. Number 7, we have Pablo Escobar's savage rule. While watching Narcos, it becomes quite apparent that Pablo Escobar was one of the most terrifying men to have ever walked the earth. At a recent login conference in Lithuania, Agent Steve Murphy further emphasized this point by stating that prior to Escobar, law enforcement was not familiar with the concept of narco-terrorism. This insidious tactic involves using violence to influence government policies related to narcotic laws, and it was something that Escobar was notorious for employing throughout his reign of terror. Agent Steve Murphy, speaking at the conference in Lithuania, sheds light on the fact that Pablo Escobar was not only a drug lord, but also the first known narco-terrorist. Although Escobar was notorious for ordering the killing of others, his personal interactions with people often seemed harmless. However, there were undeniable instances, such as the killings of Moncada and Galliano, where his actions resulted in death. While the hit show Narcos portrayed Pablo Escobar as a troubled man with a romantic side, the truth is that he was a ruthless drug lord through and through. According to first-hand accounts from informants, Pablo would not hesitate to order violence against his enemies, even going so far as drilling into their kneecaps. And it wasn't just his enemies that suffered under his rule. Prepare yourself for a chilling story, as one informant for Agents Murphy and Pena revealed a shocking incident that occurred at one of Pablo Escobar's parties. According to the informant, a waiter was caught stealing silverware, and when Pablo was informed of this, he took matters into his own hands. The thief's hands were duct taped together, and he was thrown into the pool, which was created by the infamous Paisa Robin Hood. As if this wasn't horrifying enough, the guests at the party were then entertained by watching the poor man drown. It's moments like this that remind us just how ruthless and cruel the notorious drug lord could be. He ordered the killing of Italian architects who built his houses to keep the estate's secrets safe. He also sent the fingers of his childhood friends to their families after their death. These actions show his extreme cruelty. According to Bernardo Aparicio Garcia, Narcos does not show all of Escobar's cruelty. He was a ruthless drug lord who used violence to achieve his goals. It's important to remember that real people were hurt by him, and the show only shows some of his crimes. Number 6, we give you M19's real deal. The portrayal of M19 in the hit show Narcos has been a subject of disagreement among experts. M19 was one of the largest guerrilla groups in Colombia, and their ideologies included left-wing nationalism, Bolivarianism, revolutionary socialism, and Foucault theory. Inspired by Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara, M19 was a formidable force that fought against the government's corruption and oppression. However, in the show, M19 is portrayed as a bunch of naive idealists who had no knowledge of guerrilla warfare. The group is shown to be led by an ex-college professor who also lacked any experience in guerrilla warfare. This depiction is a dramatic misrepresentation of the facts and disrespects the legacy of M19 and their contributions to the fight for social justice in Colombia. It's important to remember that M19 was a real organization with real people who fought for a cause they believed in. They were not a group of amateurs as portrayed in the show, but rather a well-organized and experienced guerrilla force. It's essential to acknowledge and respect their history and the sacrifices they made in pursuit of a more just society. Number 5, the King of Kochs' relationship with his family. The lack of consultation with the family of the man portrayed in a movie can lead to imaginative interpretations of their interactions with Pablo Escobar. This approach can be dangerous, particularly when preconceived notions are already in place. One relationship that was notably misconstrued in this way is Escobar's relationship with his son Juan Pablo. Now known as Sebastian Marroquin, Juan Pablo is no longer involved in the drug trade and has spoken openly about his experiences as the son of one of the world's most notorious drug traffickers. He has emphasized that while his father loved him deeply, he was also aware of the devastating impact of his violent actions. It's important to acknowledge the complexities of this relationship rather than resorting to simplified and inaccurate depictions in media. Sebastian Marroquin, the once known Juan Pablo Escobar, has gifted us with poignant interviews delving into his life as the son of the most notorious drug lord to have ever existed. While acknowledging the destructive consequences of his father's illicit operations, Sebastian reminisces about the deep affection his father had for him, despite his brutal persona. Sebastian witnessed the brutal results of his father's violent actions, which he strongly opposed. He remembers his sister's hearing loss from a bombing and begged his father to stop the violence. Pablo was stubborn and refused to give up. Despite Pablo's influence, Sebastian didn't feel pressured to try drugs, as his father taught him about the dark side of drug use and violence, leading him to choose a peaceful lifestyle. Additionally, Sebastian recalls a loved one who endured the ravages of drug addiction, which likely strengthened his resolve to steer clear of drugs. His interviews offer a unique perspective into Pablo Escobar's personal life and how his actions reverberated throughout his family. He recounted instances where he would deceive his own children during games such as Monopoly, all to secure a victory. The TV series portrays Juan Pablo as a naive teenager, even during his father's final moments, but in reality, he was already 16 when Pablo passed away. Furthermore, his recollection of Pablo's death diverges significantly from what is depicted in the show, which will be discussed shortly. Number 4, we have the truth behind La Cathedral. The portrayal of Escobar's prison as a luxurious haven with his personal items barely scratches the surface of the horrors that lay within La Cathedral. As we previously discussed, there were recordings, but that's not all. In the movie, Escobar leaves a book of pictures behind, but Agent Murphy and Pena's book, Manhunters: How We Took Down Pablo Escobar, sheds light on a much more damning discovery. They uncovered a film canister in his adjacent office's trash, which contained shocking images of Escobar. These images were used to create wanted posters. Pena explains that Escobar kept an archive of every wanted poster ever issued against him in Colombia, along with all articles ever written about him. Additionally, he meticulously arranged threatening notes from his adversaries. Escobar's fastidiousness was evident, even in the bathrooms of La Catedral, which had spotless 3-inch walls, according to Pena. However, the most disturbing findings were the letters from mothers offering their daughters to Pablo for sexual favors, as well as the neatly organized closet filled with lace negligees, vibrators, and other sexual paraphernalia. One curious anecdote in their book is Pena's account of sleeping in Escobar's bed. Despite his exhaustion, Pena tossed and turned all night, unable to find rest in the notorious drug lord's bed. Carlos Leder's true influence for number 3. Carlos Leder's origins trace back to Klaus Wilhelm Leder, a German who left his home country for Colombia and later changed his name to Guillermo Leder. There he married Helena Rivas, a Colombian woman, and fathered Carlos. Following his parents' divorce, Carlos migrated to the United States with his mother, where he eventually found himself behind bars. It was during his time in prison that Carlos formed a relationship with fellow inmate George Young. Together they hatched a plan to revolutionize the cocaine trade by utilizing a small aircraft to smuggle drugs into the United States. Carlos was already entrenched in the drug trade before he crossed paths with Pablo Escobar, and his partnership with the infamous drug lord proved critical in helping Escobar accumulate his vast fortune. Later, Carlos Leder became a billionaire, so wealthy that he offered to pay off Colombia's external debt twice. He even devised a plan to evade extradition. The portrayal of his character on the show was quite limited, showing him as a hothead who often outed himself on national radio and was told to shut up in meetings. However, his story and subsequent downfall were far more complex and detailed than depicted on the show. Second, we have the death of Pablo Escobar. Though it may have seemed strange considering Pablo Escobar's history, some of his family members, like his son Juan Pablo, believe that he committed suicide. Juan Pablo points out that his father was always wary of phones, believing they were instruments of death. Pablo knew that law enforcement agencies were using triangulation to track cartel members, so he avoided using the phone and warned his son to do the same. Juan Pablo's second point highlights the danger that surrounded Escobar's family. They were refused asylum in Germany and had to seek shelter in a hotel owned by the Colombian military. This made Escobar acutely aware of the risks his family faced, including potential phone line monitoring. The third point relates to Escobar teaching his son how to commit suicide if he was ever caught. Juan Pablo explains that his father told him shooting oneself in the right ear was the fastest and least painful way to die and avoid torture. Escobar's brothers confirmed this, stating that he preferred to take his own life than be captured and tortured by his pursuers. In the final moments of Pablo Escobar's life, important details add to the gravity of the situation. Colonel Martinez and his son Lieutenant Martinez were using specialized equipment to intercept any phone signal that could lead them to Escobar. Meanwhile, Escobar was talking to his son Juan Pablo about a widely known interview. Juan Pablo revealed that his father called him 7 times, and despite his attempts to end the call, Escobar persisted. Despite concerns about surveillance, Juan Pablo continued the conversation. Eventually, Juan Pablo realized that his father was willing to sacrifice himself to protect the family and avoid torture. Lieutenant Martinez saw Pablo Escobar on the car antenna while talking on the phone, so the police raided the house. Pablo hung up the phone suddenly, claiming unusual circumstances and saying he would call back later. In the chaos, Pablo was shot and his bodyguard Limon was killed. An autopsy showed that Pablo was shot in his right ear, which added to the mystery surrounding his death. He was killed on the day after his birthday, leading to speculation that it was done for symbolic reasons. This coincidence is curious, and some believe it was a final reckoning for those who had pursued him for so long. First on the list, we have actor Wagner Moura's controversial support for drug legalization. Wagner's performance as Pablo Escobar in Narcos was incredible, earning him widespread acclaim for his immersive portrayal of the drug lord. His portrayal was so convincing that his pictures even appear on Google's searches for Escobar's name. Moura, the actor who played Escobar, strongly believes that drugs like cocaine should be legalized, a view that was strengthened by his experience playing the role. In a world where cocaine was legal, Moura argues that Escobar would have been remembered as a successful businessman who gave back to his community. While he did order some killings, most were of people who threatened his power or sought to extradite him. Escobar's power and influence came from his ability to produce and sell a highly demanded product, not from any inherent criminal tendencies. Remember, there's always more to the story than what's presented on the screen, so keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep learning. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.